Can I start? Yeah. Are we ready? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm just recording it. I hope you don't mind. I'm like, the idea is that I want to start like a live streaming this, recording it for when we get proper speakers. So I'm just testing out the technology myself, really. Yeah. It's it will look like that on the live, but so. Okay, well, welcome everyone to Porcupine on a Wednesday night. It's great to see that we've got a good number, like 20 of us or something. And we've got a couple of newbies from Darlington tonight. Yay! Siobhan and Bethany. And then... oh, brilliant. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, that's great. David Bowie, there was this game, right? It was a video game released in 1999, and he talks like, he said, you've entered this dimension, and you're in OMICRON, and very few people have passed this way. It's like a very scary game, and if you lose, then your souls go to this place where you don't want to go to and everything, but you can fight back, and if you win, you can go on to the next level, and it's all very satanic. And I've watched through it about 3 or 4 times, and following what Steve was saying last week. Did you come last week? Did you see? Steve was talking about the occult, and he gave a really big talk on the 5th of November, the Scott. The what's it called? Travis Scott concert, yeah. And it was like because it was like a satanic ritual. There was an energy harvesting, and but if you listen to this David Bowie on this game from 1999, he speaks all about how, you know, he talks about souls and surviving, and if you get to the other side, and you can see it's all this. Leading people into this like virtual reality world, because what also happened in the 1990s, there was the film The Matrix, and we started to become aware of this transhuman agenda thing, because this is where they're trying to get us to. So in the same way as kids are getting like addicted to these computer games where they've got to do this task, they've got to do that task, and they've got to get to the next level, and they've no idea how they got to that level or how they get to the next level. They just get lots of like dopamine kind of hits and everything, and you might say to them, well, it's just a game, and they'll say, yeah, it's just, I know it's just a game, right? Like you watch a movie, you think, well, I know it's just a movie, but the subconscious mind understands things very differently. The subconscious mind never forgets, and it remembers these habits and traits and things like this. So this is what's been going on for decades now, and especially getting the young people. We didn't have these kind of games. I mean, I guess most of you are about my age, you know, well, a bit younger than me. I'm 60 now, but we didn't have these computer games. We played things like well, we went out to play football, didn't we? And we played things like drafts and chess and cards.
Monopoly.
All, yeah, Monopoly. Also. Yeah. But these were games yeah. Chess. And like I mentioned last week about jigsaw puzzles, you know, you build a picture. These are all really educational things, but now to pulling these, like pulling our souls like into this matrix. So one side of it is the games that we're getting our heads stuck in, and then the other side of it is this this matrix world where when you're in it, they're not only making the rules for us, but they're making our whole like reality. Hi Wayne, yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah. Sit here, yeah. So these game makers are not only making the rules, making the laws, but they're defining our whole reality. And it's what I've been like learning over the last 20 years is that they've been doing this for a long time.
Getting back to
Yeah.
what you were saying there about Omicron, the way you just described it there
Yeah.
is soul harvesting. Anybody who's willing to give up their soul goes one way. Anybody who can stick to their integrity and stay on point, stick to their principles, they retain their soul. So what you're saying is that they're the ones who'll move up a level as opposed to moving off. Yeah? And so it's soul harvesting.
Yeah. Well, so what do we have? Like we had the delta. It's just my theory that it's more than just a made up. Well, we know that it doesn't exist. I mean, it's Omicron, for example. It's never been identified. It's never been tested. They've made up this kind of that it's a bit mild. That there was 6 cases in South Africa or something, and 6 cases in Scotland. No one's died from it. But there's this massive fear about something that's not even proven to exist. So
in Africa, there's 4 of them, and they're all diplomats, foreign diplomats of Africa. Nobody knows that.
the what?
It's 4 diplomats of Africa in Africa. That's who've got it. And they won't say who they are.
Well, they have to, don't they? Because they have to be diplomats. Because how else could? Because you can't get in or out unless you're vaxxed.
4 foreign diplomats.
Yeah.
And I think they tested for it in the airport, and they won't say who these diplomats are, where they're from, and that's where it is. That's what it is.
Yeah,
apparently these 4 are also jib-jabbed.
Yeah.
So you know.
Everyone, all of them are jib-jabbed, yeah. So I think with each one of these levels, like let's just go back to that one again. I was saying this list there. So Delta was about like making people sleepy, and Delta is like when you're just about asleep or you're not really conscious, like when you're watching TV and stuff is slipping subconsciously into your mind. That's like Delta kind of thing, and so Omicron, I think it's going to be scary, this one, because they realise that fear is a really
It's the
good
same thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
With a different name.
Yeah, it is. It's all psychological. It's a cycle, and with it will come a whole set of policies that they'll have to do. That will, it's like when they do like.
They've got the idiots in charge, control it.
Yeah. It's like when they do Operation Paperclip or Operation Northwoods or all these different things. It comes with a whole list of policies and things within it, and I'm getting the feeling that there's a whole package of things they do with Omicron. So I've started to see some quite nasty, scary stuff on that will even sort of like could even divide the non-vaxxed kind of people, because it's scary. But as long as we know it's all occult kind of stuff, then we shouldn't be affected by it. But it's easier said than done, because we're going to get tested by these things. Right, masks. So they've now said mandatory masks now in all shops and stuff like that. Now we've been through it before, haven't we? So, and I was a bit shocked this morning that I go in the supermarket and sure enough, everybody's wearing masks. They're just like, they're told what to do and they just do it.
Well, a little article last night versus Velvet. I would say about 5-6% of the people in there.
Yeah, I think there'll be less this time. I think
There's less in the shops, average.
They're not enforcing it,
They're
not enforcing what I was in Morrison.
yeah.
The security guard called me, because I know they said, oh, you don't need to wear a mask.
Yeah.
It's traffic lights and all this.
No, the thing about the masks thing, though, is that they're saying they're doing it for the people. They're doing it because they're virtuous and they're doing it for you. They're doing
Well, it's because they care.
it's because they're caring.
It's all there.
But that's in my view that's nonsense. It's because they don't understand the science, right? They don't understand the science. They're confused and they're just following what everyone else is doing, right? And
Careful
The-
monkeys, no back to monkeys.
yeah. So I was having this like chat today with some of my Facebook friends, and they were saying, oh, you know, we have to be, we're doing it for other people, we're caring, but it's not. The mask is like our bodies are meant to expel stuff that it wants out.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Monkeys are expensive.
That's not me, by the way. It's you know, we've got to expel it. So like, you know, bits of fluff like from fibers, we would cough that out. Microorganisms, bacteria, and stuff like that. All the CO2, and having a mask on, right? And you're just breathing it back in. That does that make sense to anyone here?
Reaching the compliment today.
I used to wear.
Oh, you're gonna put your mask on?
I used to wear those masks years ago
Yeah.
when I used to do body work on cars. 'Cause it's dusty.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, they don't work.
No.
And especially when you put them around your chin like that,
No.
and up from your ears, so your mouth's not even covered. And you stand there,
No. But just for going in the street, well, no, it's like our bodies are getting real-time information. When we breathe it in, we know that we subconsciously know whether somewhere's safe or not safe. We should go somewhere else.
yeah, you just said that we've been taken up by AI,
Yeah.
and there's proof. They're wearing a mask and they don't know why. They think there's a natural virus out there, but can't be bothered to even check. And they're all following each other.
Yeah, it's,
I was hoping it was on there, but I think what you're trying to get to is the bacterial pneumonia that you're basically breathing back into your lungs. It's not on there, unfortunately.
oh yeah, bacterial pneumonia.
But basically, what the masks are a satanic ritual to make people ill, whilst convincing them that they're actually being healthy and protecting themselves at the same time.
Hmm.
It's doing exactly the opposite, but that's what Satanism is about. It's about inversion. It's taking something and twisting it.
Yeah, you can't
Yeah.
take people's expression, so you're losing that.
Yeah. Well, it's making
Especially
people.
bad for kids,
Yeah,
that they can't, especially bad for kids that they can't see.
yeah.
Yeah,
It-
well, one of the main things is
Mm.
viruses can enter through your eyes very easily.
What virus is it?
We get anyone who goggles on it.
Yeah.
Don't forget the clown shoes. Don't forget the clown shoes. We need them to
Is
protect our
that the
face.
same virus
Get
that's
the
going
two-
back
the
from the
two
moon
weeks
at
apart.
the moment?
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
No,
we get
this.
about 1,000 new variants every single day.
I'm at the stage that they lie about everything.
Oh, well,
I mean,
of course we
everything.
do. But I'm just saying, we get about 1,000 every day
Yeah.
of new variants. But they
But nobody's ever
enter
found
through-
one.
Oh, well, I don't think anybody
Have you
has
seen
a
one?
variant.
Have you seen one under a microscope?
No.
I don't know anyone who has.
No.
In fact, I haven't even seen any dead people.
No one's seen
Viruses,
them.
your body expelling all the toxins. It's not
What it
it's not
is,
something
Yeah.
you go to the supermarket, you're buying shitty food that's not food, and the toxins build up inside you, right? And
your body expels them.
Yeah.
and if you're expelling them,
Yeah.
and you meet other people, their bodies go, oh, that's a good idea. I need to get rid of my toxins as well.
Well, that's it. I'm just saying, they're so small. It doesn't matter if you've got a mask on. They
I've
just
been
go in your eyes,
I've
anyway.
been to doctors for 10 years.
The thing that we're missing, the thing that we're missing,
To go anywhere near them.
the thing that we're missing out though, is that our human body is like we've got an immune system, and it is like a real-time AI system.
Yeah.
So even though what we're not conscious of, the body is analysing stuff. And it's been doing this for thousands of years,
It's
and
a
it
do it
knows
yourself machine.
what's right. And when you block off the information coming in, then it's confusing our system. So it doesn't make sense. It's child abuse. And
Especially for our children.
right, brings me on to the next topic. Right, I want to talk about epidemiology. Right, so epidemiology started by this guy called John Snow, who was a doctor of some kind, and he noticed there was this disease, this abundance of this illness in London. It was called the cholera pandemic. Well, it was epidemic, but it's what would be a pandemic today, right? And people are dying, and so the doctors would give potions and stuff like that. And he had the sense to do a scientific method, right? What's happening? And he did a map. He did a map, and he found out where all the deaths were and cases, and he pinpointed it to this single pump station, which was contaminated with sewage, and they fixed it, and then London underwent sort of sanitation improvements and stuff like that. The problem was 100% solved because they did the scientific method and they found what it was, and that was where the term epidemiology came from. So that was 1866, which is not that long ago, 150 years ago or something.
It's long enough.
But then, of course, it was round about the 1900s or so that the Rockefellers came along and they completely took hold of this medical system.
It was allopathic medicine, wasn't it? Did the Rockefellers?
Yeah, there was allopathic medicine before then, yeah. There was, hang on, wait a minute.
It's all supposed to be oil-based, isn't it?
Allopathic.
Rockefeller oil.
Which is allopathic? Allopathic is
Allopathic is Rockefeller oil.
is what they do.
Rockefeller medicine, isn't it?
Yeah, as opposed to homeopathic and stuff like that. Yeah. So, yeah, and this is it. Basically, comes down to this: germ theory versus terrain theory, right? What they did with the smallpox thing was that they realised there was this disease, this pandemic, and they got to the source of it and they eradicated it, and that's like cleaning the tank rather than vaccinating a fish, right? So you got an ill fish. What do? Do you give it a jab or something, or do you just clean the water? It's sensible that you just it's the terrain. Huh?
It's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science, no. But
That's why
what?
we don't live so, because we live in a sick world.
Yeah. So I would do. So they get a group of people that have got these symptoms, and they look at samples of their blood, and they say, oh, there are all these strange looking antibodies. It must be, or strange little things, microorganisms. This must be the cause, right? Which is like saying there's a scene of a disaster, and you've got all these emergency workers, and you say, oh, there's a disaster, a building has come down, emergency workers. Oh, the emergency workers, those people in those suits, they must be the cause of it. No, they're there cleaning it up. And this is what's happened with germ theory. They've looked at decaying, dying, sort of living tissue, and they've seen the abundance of these microorganisms. And so they have a name for every ill. They say, that's the flu virus, that's the rotavirus, that's the what is it? What are these other diseases that we get? What?
Swine flu, isn't it?
Swine flu. They've made up millions of them.
Monkey flu.
Flu. Yeah.
Did it with influenza.
Influenza.
That is a true pandemic.
My
Man flu is
grandfather is
epidemic.
well with influenza.
People believe it and they put it in the schools and educated this. It's yeah, that's crazy. Right. This how big oil conquered the world. Has anyone heard of James Corbett? Right.
Yeah.
Well, I thoroughly recommend watch this. How big oil conquered the world, because he explains where the Rockefellers came from, and the Rothschilds, and how they created a market for oil, and how they all these medical products are made with oil, but then they were so big and powerful that they then went and took over. They bought the universities and all the medical hospitals, and they say, well, we're funding this all these hospitals. Is it not only right that we put some of our directors in as well? Like, yeah, sure, okay then. And eventually, over the last 100 years, they've taken over all the medical thinking, this whole allopathic industry. So then they did things like just before the war, they introduced this, like for cancer. Uh, Cancer, there's only 3 methods of treating cancer. It's like slash, cut, burn, poison. But I know I've been looking at this. There's many cures for cancer. There's Gerson therapy. There's all kinds of dealing with cancer. It's not like the scary thing that they make it out to be.
They look for it.
Hmm?
They look for it. That's why you're going for your tests and your checks and you get your letters and that. They're looking for it.
Yeah.
And the slightest little thing, they're going to scare the shit out of you.
I know
And
some
then
of,
they'll go in there digging,
Yeah.
and then they'll cut bits out like they did with their granddad.
I know some of the lady who's just been on little minute lump just next to a nipple. When I had it checked out, they said, "Oh, that's all right, but while you're here, we'll do a mammogram." Did a mammogram, found what's called DCIS, ductal carcinoma in situ, which is classed as pre-cancer or stage 0 cancer. There's much research around the world has been done about it, but they choose not to tell you about the research that's been done. They choose to tell you that it may well turn cancer. Out of 80% of women at this particular place that were that died of something completely unrelated to cancer, the 80% of the women who had a post-mortem done on them found DCIS.
What's that?
DCIS, it's basically the milk ducts become calcified, and then it can be a signal that it's going to go on to cancer, for breast cancer. So anyway, let's go back to this lady herself.
Can be anything.
So they took biopsies, did loads of invasive, 12 biopsies, needles jabbed in all over the place. Probably did more damage than time would ever have done. And in the end, she had full mastectomy, just in case.
Well, you see these many white coats.
Because of the fear.
Yeah.
They done the Wilco Johnson, didn't they? They done the Wilco Johnson, the talking English. He's still alive. He probably did not cancer. What am I saying? He's still better get out about, like, you know. But yeah, look, they done the Wilco, didn't they? They said he had cancer and all sorts of things. Yeah. Poor guy, he couldn't even get through it. Misdiagnosed.
What I understand of cancer, and it was virtually non-existent until this century. Last century,
Well, it shouldn't exist.
it was. It's like it's because of like blockages, congestion, and you're not getting the oxygen to
Because of
cells.
pollution and what they put in the
Yeah.
food and.
So you're not getting
Do you know
oxygen.
what the biggest cause is?
What we
Huh?
eat.
Candida. Candida. It's what is it? Fungus. It's basically your body becomes acidic.
Oh, Candida, yeah.
Candida is a yeast. Yeah, it's
Candida,
your body out of balance, and it's because of environmental influences
Yeah.
that your body just can't handle, and so the defense mechanisms kick in, and of course in the toxic world.
That reminds me. That's another thing of the. What's it called? The OMICRON. It's an anagram of oncomia, which is an mRNA cancer-causing thing. Anyway, that's just another thing. So yeah, all the medical institutions have been taken over. Oh, and Joyce from Hartlepool, she worked all her life. She's not here this week. Do you know who I'm talking about from Hartlepool? She's this big lady, and she's just retired. She worked all her life doing as a cancer and doing these mammogram kind of things. and she just couldn't do it any longer because she could see they were just looking to make as much money as they can, and these were real people, real lives, real humans, and they were just sort of. So she's got like a horrific story to tell.
Well, there's 50% of breast surgery that was totally unnecessary. 50%.
50%.
Yeah, where they've just done it.
Did they do breast surgery in the old days? Never
I
heard of
don't
it when I
think
was
so.
young. When I was young,
No,
Yeah.
wasn't heard of it.
no, it's just an invented.
It's a new thing.
Yeah,
That's it.
I think
What you
it's.
lay down, the excuse to do is, oh, it's just reported more, or it's, you hear about it on the news more.
Yeah.
Because that's the excuse for anything that they want, that's on the up. And you hear about it more because it's diagnosed more, or it's recognised more, or it's more is known about it now. Before it used to go under the radar or misdiagnosed. It's-
And it's fashionable now and all. I've seen that there where you got a tattoo there and all that. You don't see like happy tat there, happy.
Mm.
And you know what I mean? You know, it's not, you know, and see like it was down with Sam, she showed it, she just got a tattoo there. It was great, you know what I mean? Couldn't see her, but expecting her to got a tattoo. It'd be horrible.
Why have
Nasty
proper
habit.
biology when you can have a
Now.
tattoo? Why have a full body when you can have a tattoo?
Yeah.
Put your arm off because you can have a full of stump.
Well, you know, it should seems to be glamorized and it's you know what I mean?
Well, let me tell
You
you.
can get a tattoo.
Let me tell you
know,
my story for people who may not have heard it right. My sister Carol and I, we had a younger brother called Michael, who back in 1990, mid 1990s, he was diagnosed HIV positive, and at that time it was a death sentence. It was presumed that if you're HIV positive, then you will certainly get AIDS and you will certainly die, and that was the mindset. And what they did with him was they said, "Oh, you've only got 2 years to live, but if you take these drugs, you live another 4 years." And they also said, you know, it's a very shameful thing, you know, being gay and being AIDS. You don't want to be telling your family that kind of thing. So he was advised not to tell the family. So for 18 months, he didn't tell us. And and what they did was the consultant and the social worker said, look, we've got this organisation, they're called Lighthouse, sponsored by Wellcome, who are sponsored by GlaxoSmithKline. And the purpose of this was like a charity where you could go and you could get food, meals, give you training, they gave them computers and stuff like that. And they were encouraged to campaign to get the government to spend money on these drugs, this AZT. So not only did they lie to these victims with a completely fabricated thing, they used them as slaves to then pressure the government to make AZT more available. And this whole AIDS scam went on for about 10 years before people really started to pick up on, you know, what a scam. You know, these people weren't dying within 2 years. It was completely nonsense. And as soon as we found out about it, as soon as I found out, I did a lot of research, and I could see straight away that it wasn't final. That no HIV had been like identified, never been isolated, and they were using the PCR test, and it was the same old nonsense like 20 years ago. So that's kind of, you know, that's how we got in on this.
Didn't Freddie Mercury die of AIDS?
Sorry?
Didn't Freddie Mercury die of AIDS?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aren't there a lot of subliminals?
Yeah.
You can say about in his songs
Well,
as they led up and then to his death, it's like a stage.
it was people dying from AIDS were like heavy drug users. They were like prostitutes, and they were people starving of malnutrition. And this is how they manufactured the statistics and the figures and everything. And that's exactly what they do today.
You didn't say George Michael died of it though, didn't they? You thought he'd been dead, wouldn't you? And he went the same way, like a bag of bones. You know, you can say that he had it. I don't know why they must be able by then,
Yeah.
but they were just
Okay.
saying, loads of others did die at one time.
Okay. Oh, you coming in? Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. Great. Are you going to introduce yourself?
Tell them names, Bob. Roger.
Okay. Let's do names here. I'm Chris.
I've got to go, mate. Sorry about
Peter.
that.
Yeah. Peter. Yeah. Me.
Jackie.
Jackie.
Me?
Yeah.
Andy?
And yeah.
Julie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Paul.
Well, yeah. Let's go. Yvonne from Darlow and Carrie. This is not for my benefit. Well, it is, yeah, but it's also for everyone else's benefit as well, you know. So yeah, we
You do
got.
realise you're giving YouTube a free data mining operation here, right? So for that, I'm Skeletor.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You shouldn't bring the usage in, should you?
It's not really
Oh, yeah.
Skeletor, don't worry.
I'm really Skeletor.
You usually then, you get in trouble.
Yeah.
We are anyway.
Oh, right.
Crack on, Chris.
That's another question. I mean, I hope people don't mind the idea of like me sort of like recording this. I mean, it's a really big deal that we might.
Well, you identified ourselves as Facebook and all.
Yeah, we're all totally identified anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not
We
going to
walk
be able
around
to
with
anyone.
mobile phones, we walk around with black mirrors every single day.
That's where you
Every
get paper
phone
bags.
call, every message, where we are is all known if they want to.
Yeah.
If they want to know where we are, they can. The black mirror is what, it's a black mirror, it's called a black mirror for a reason, and it's been like that for many years. So when I speak to people now, when I have people who come to me, I always say, can we leave our phones there? And when I come into places and speaking in person, I will leave and ask people to leave their phones outside because I am fully well aware one word can trigger a recording or a camera can come on. Or so for me now, that's why I don't use these black mirrors. And if we want to, for me, if we want to get anywhere, we've got to realise that as well. Because we're all getting recorded, this is recording us, even without you,
Yeah.
this is recording us, so, yeah.
Do you think we should have a microwave? And when we come in, we all put our phones in the microwave.
Well,
And switch it on.
How did we manage it before the phones?
Exactly.
Because I lived in an era where it was the phone box down the end of the road.
Yeah,
Likewise,
and me, I did this.
so we had a thing called a bike.
How did society?
Do you not think
Yeah.
it's got to
Function
go
of
back to
government.
that?
Yeah, I hope so.
Halfway around the bloody neighbourhood.
Yeah.
So you're outside.
Yeah.
But did you not find that before phones, life was a lot better?
Yeah.
Because you had more respect for each other and you turned up on time and you knew where people were because you had regular meeting places, a bit like this. Gender isn't more.
Interaction, communication, human behaviour, now they're pretty much got stopped.
It's true what they say, like, there's not enough bullets in the world to kill all the idiots. That's how many of this.
It's illusions, right?
Yeah.
But,
Let me come to what I was originally going to talk about.
yeah, the vaccines. Oh, the thing is it to get rid of the idiots?
I was originally going to talk about mud floods, but I haven't got much information on that. So we've talked about like a bit about the falsification of like the medical industry. It's not just the medical industry; it's like the whole of science. I could even talk about how gravity is not necessarily what they make it out to be. It's not really as important. But it's an electric universe that we're living in. So there's lots of things that have been falsified about. I mean, was there really a Big Bang even? I question everything.
From what I heard or read, that all of the maths works out for everything perfectly if you trace the maths all the way back to something like a couple of billionths of seconds. after the alleged Big Bang. And those first couple of billions to the second just don't work. You can't get the maths to work for that. So basically, if you can't get the first couple of billions to the second, how does everything else? It doesn't matter. Everything else makes sense.
Who
Now.
the hell thought of the Big Bang theory? Huh? It's definitely not.
Well, this is an
not a
interesting thing.
scientist.
Next week we've got John Hamer coming in, and he's written lots of books. He's got falsification of science, falsification of history. He's got all of these books about the money industry, and his theory is that all of these people were Masons, right? This like this thing about Big Bang theory.
Well, is the Earth flat around?
Well, that's another one. That's another one. Yeah.
And if you go into it, then you know where you end up.
Yeah.
It's flat.
Well, I would have said otherwise until a few weeks
93
ago.
million miles to the sun. What? You got seasons? Come on.
Mm.
We haven't got seasons anymore.
No,
None of this
we
weather's
used to have
real.
seasons.
But I believe this weather's been manufactured
It is.
and being like this.
Have you tried
But
growing
it's been
vegetables?
going since the 80s. It's been getting manufactured and talked about it since the 80s. And you look at Vietnam and how they used this weaponry in the war.
Do you think it was a coincidence that the solstice, right, two solstices, June, the longest day and the shortest day, were exactly the same temperature last year?
Have you noticed how the temperature is a lot warmer in the night? Like we had these wild storms, and the really cold wind and really cold day. But if you go out at 3 o'clock in the morning, that cold day is not like that. It's not cold like that outside at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning the way it is in the daytime.
One thing that is measurable though is that the solar radiance is declining. Right? Pity we're not got a spanner here. I'd have a good argument for them. But like the radiance is it's not like it was when I remember.
Something is messing
very
about with
yellow.
it. It's not declining. It's being played with. It's obvious. I mean, I've been on this planet long enough. Since the 70s, I've started to notice anyway. I mean, when we had that hottest year in 1976, I thought, hey, life great. And it was downhill after that.
Yeah. It's
I started work, I got a job, that was in trouble.
but historically, though, we know that there are these like there is climate change, but it's nothing to do with man-made.
Cycle.
It's cycles.
Yeah.
It's like there's been ice ages and stuff.
Yeah, there's been shit happening all over the climate all the time. I don't think climate's the problem.
No.
I think trying to fix some of the things broke's the problem, especially when you need money to do it.
Yeah. Mud floods, right? Has anyone seen evidence of this?
Yeah.
Right. I didn't know until David Ebony, he came last week. I started watching his videos because he's
You seen his Tale of Two Castles?
yes, yeah,
That's what started me off.
yeah.
I saw that video of his Tale of Two Castles, and something just went boom
Yeah.
in my brain.
Yeah.
And then I started looking. If you go to Middlesbrough Centre,
Yeah. It's called David Parkin,
yeah,
and he came last week. He was only here for the first. He feels very uncomfortable in pubs and things, so he disappeared and went out. Yeah,
Was that me?
yeah.
Oh, I feel uncomfortable.
No, no,
Well, let me know.
no. We'll talk about you once you've gone, right?
Oh, no, I'm just talking to you.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm coming back.
Okay. No, so David, I've always been interested in local history, and I'd searched for Stockton, and he did a lot of his talks. And what happened with him was he was in Scarborough about 3 or 4 years ago in the Scarborough Grand Palace Hotel, and he thought he looked into a bit of the history of the building, and he found that it had 12 stories, but there was only 4 visible. There was only 8 visible. He found out 4 were submerged. So he looked into it and he found out that
where was this?
there'd been a massive mud flood.
Where was this?
This is in
Scarborough.
Scarborough by the Grand Castle.
Yeah.
And just in that little valley thing, there was like a whole kind of plaza kind of thing.
Do you remember what it was like when you were a kid?
What's that?
Well, it wasn't an underground car park, was it?
I don't know.
I don't remember it as an underground car park.
What was
Near the Grand
That-
Hotel.
Yeah,
it? Alright.
it's all underground, it's all, and it goes well back. I think we've only touched that much of it.
Yeah, but it wasn't just that. He started noticing everywhere all of these old buildings, and even in Stockton, worldwide even.
Yeah.
That there are these like that, for example. It's just
Yeah. You wouldn't build it like that.
you wouldn't. But the whole of London is like that,
Yeah.
like Kensington.
If you ask a builder to build it like that, he'd look at you like you're weird. And that's all the place.
No. And yet, for some reason, we just sort of like we didn't really think. I didn't think about it. They did it for some silly reason. But now he pointed this out. I can see it everywhere. And not only that, but these buildings they had some kind of technology whereby got these like tassels and things on the roof, and he's saying that they were harnessing some kind of electricity, some kind of energy.
Have you ever messed about with aerials?
Sorry?
Have you ever messed about with coils, aerials, magnets, electricity?
Bits and bits, yeah.
I did when I was 10. My granddad said, put a wire up as high as you can. I'm thinking a balloon with a wire.
Mm.
But I didn't do that. I hung across the trees. It's about 50 foot. And I put a copper pipe into the ground. And I went to my granddad and said, well, I've done it. He said, right, now get yourself over to the library and get the oldest books you can find. And I did. So I was messing about with capacitors, transistors, valves. I had the next door neighbour gave me what they called a radio that was big as a sideboard, and it had valves the size of these bottles.
Mm.
I wish I hadn't took the bits and jiggered it up. But, that's what you do when you're a kid. How does this work? But now, it was a work about. I still don't know what it was. They also give me, I can say it was a dynamo. You put 12 volts in one end, and you get 250 out the other end. And it spins like hell. So you've got energy,
Yeah.
revolution, and you've got electricity coming out of it.
Yeah, we've got energy just like 4 or 5 meters above us. So a lot of these buildings were harnessing it. And he's pointed out, I said that big round thing is a capacitor. These tassels would get it, and the red
Your
brick
bricks and
was like
batteries.
the red brick is like iron, and then there would be white brick between it, which was like those plates that they do in batteries and stuff. And but not only that, these buildings, well, like churches, for example, churches were built on ley lines, and especially cathedrals on ley lines. And when you get like a choir,
What's that funny
when you
little
get
thing
little-
round? You see the churches,
Yeah.
and you always seem to get like a skirting board around them,
Yeah,
as if it's been like put on a later date camouflage something. You know what I mean? Like little,
yeah.
as if there's something. Well, we know there's something down there. They've just camouflaged it, haven't they?
Well, yeah, what-
little skirting board trim around it.
What Dave Parkin is saying was that they weren't built for religious reasons. He was saying
Oh,
they,
no.
they were built as healing places.
Why would you have 4 religious buildings within half a mile of each other when they're all different religions? Is that to make people fight?
Mm, yeah. No, so they're all on ley lines, and they're all built with these like what's it called, sacred geometric kind of shapes and everything. So when they play the organs, it's really beautiful harmonics and stuff coming through. And so they get these like harmonics and stuff, and then how is that energy sort of like how does it get to places? Well, he was saying that chandeliers originally were like crystals, were quartz, and these churches could resonate this earth energy, and it was through frequencies that they could light up the places with these chandeliers through a harmonic of the frequency that they got from these buildings that got them from the earth. So it was like all this like free energy stuff.
Going back to your cancer and the frequencies, the light machine, and the
Yeah.
light machine he had 14 patients, and he cured 14 patients, and then was shut down by the government, even though he was promoting this and say you can make billions and billions and billions and billions of pounds when it goes into the big pharmaceutical industry. They say, yeah, you might be making us millions of pounds, but you will cost us trillions. Because they won't be able to give them the drugs, the chemo and the radiation. Because these frequencies would be, for me, frequencies and healing are going hand in hand at the moment.
Yeah, because he was round about the same time as Tesla.
Yeah,
And so
well,
he,
Tesla for me, I've done research in Tesla, sorry for interrupting, but I've done my research in Tesla, and Tesla came to me in 2016, and I was a big avid Tesla, you need to research Tesla, love a Tesla. And it was 2 years ago when it came to me, Nikola Tesla was hidden for a reason, and he was bought out at this time for a reason. This energy source, like you said, is here for us. Nikola Tesla didn't invent it. He got it from another person or somebody else. The energy is there for all of us to source. Do you believe these mud floods were the last recess? Because when I've read into the mud floods, you go back into 1817, 1860s, and then you follow that on with changeling trains. And all parents, so all of a sudden there's all orphans all over the place. Where's all these orphans
your
come from?
grandparents come from?
Where's all these orphans come
And your
from? Where's the
great-grandparents?
parents? And they're resetting and putting these orphans to repopulate places that they're going to kill.
My granddad came from Norway, and my grandfather came from Scotland. And they can't tell me nothing about
right.
nothing before that.
I think I'll bring this to an end.
My great-grandfather.
I think that's why the whole fuckery is about with social
And I've talked to a lot of families and nobody can come up with the answer. Tell you what they're doing, exactly what the government's done.
Okay,
I do
bring this to an
regularly,
end. Okay.
and I've got immigrants coming to me.